Hello everyone, Ganeto here, and today we're gonna check out my Sleep Pack team. So basically this is a deck that will put your opponent to sleep every single time you're using Jigglypuff, while you have access to some other perks like the card distraction element as well. You can always replace Ditto like I have here with something else, something like a second person for example, but it's all up to you. I decided to spice things up using Ditto for the first time ever, and to my surprise it kinda worked, especially against other normal type Pokemon. So one time I was having a Kangaskhan against me and Ditto was just wrecking Savage against them. However, I do not have that footage recorded, so instead we're gonna have something else going on here. So my opponent right now is having a Pikachu deck, most likely the Raichu version of it, and we will try to go ahead and spam our copy anything to those upkicks or the Gno, because they're basically the same move, dealing 20 damage with a simple electric energy attached to it. But we're here for the Jigglypuff stuff, because Jigglypuff now can sleep your opponent with its promo skin, and I think that this is gonna be a game changer for a lot of decks. This strategy can prove to be one of the best against Mewtwo's and Pikachu decks, because these decks cannot do anything other than wait for you to put them to sleep. They cannot clear that sleep with evolving like they do with Charizard, Venusaur or even Blastoise decks, and of course you can always count on your Jigglypuff to survive a whole turn if that sleep goes through, because whenever you do the sleep, well, you basically attack your opponent, so your turn is ended and your opponent at that time is coin flipping their chances to wake up from the sleep or not, and so it is a 50-50 element for you. I think that Jigglypuff with 50 HP is not gonna be that much to survive a whole turn sometimes, because there are some Pokemon in the game like the new Houndour for example, which can deal 50 damage with a simple energy attached to it, or something like a Kangaskhan which always has a chance to one-shot down a lot of basic Pokemon with that 2 coin flip, getting heads and of course dealing 60 damage in total. You can count on your Meowth though as your starting Pokemon sometimes. We're gonna see it I guess in the next battle right after this, because Meowth can go pretty rough against a lot of opponents, but not with its damage output, instead with that draw one card aspect of its game, because that can give you a whole advantage over your opponent, but of course it is kinda easy for it to faint with only 60 HP remaining. However, with having Persian into the game, you might actually have a great chance at finishing off your opponents. Persian not only can do 40 damage with any kind of energy attached to it, but also it has the chance to discard your opponent's hand, which is pretty great. Of course it is a chance, so a coin flip once again. Coin flip is basically the main aspect of the whole TCG Pocket conception, so yeah, take that in mind when you're using decks like this. So my opponent here is switching out to the Pikachu X, and I'm trying to go for the sleep on that Pokemon. So basically they wake up immediately, and that is devastating for me. Not only now they can finish me off, but also they can go pretty rough up against me, since I have no other Pokemon remaining and basically they can win. However, they still need one extra energy to get there, so I get advantage of that fact and I get my chance on the Wigglytuff, the EX. Let's see now if we can put them to sleep once again effectively this time, but guess what? Yeah, luck is not my main element of the game, so basically they wake up. If only I had at least a chance here, because we could easily win them by getting at least one of those tails on that Pikachu, but it is what it is. If you are a little bit luckier than I am, this deck will actually work much better for you. However, even though we go down here, we might see something weird happening in the process, because they end up switching out on Zebstrika, and now we get the one shot over that Pokemon. So it's all up to up to Raichu, I guess. Perhaps they have something like a Lieutenant Surge, but they end up coming back to the battle with Ebstrika. So another one is coming off the bench, and I guess that we can survive those moves, but at the same time they're charging up the Raichu, so you can already tell that the end is near. So back to the deck explanation here, I'm also having a Giovanni at this point. The reason I'm doing this is because I had no other card to fill in there, at least a solid card. I could go for another basic Pokemon like Kangaskhan or just go for another Persian, but first and foremost I do not have another Persian, that's why I'm using D2 instead of it, and of course I think that Giovanni might give you an extra edge against a lot of certain Pokemon. So that's why I have it over here. Now with the red card, I think that you definitely need two of those on this deck. So we lost the first battle, but it is what it is, and now let's see what red card can do, because with red card you get to shuffle the entire hand of your opponent back to the deck, and in no time at all they will have 3 cards in their hand instead. So if your opponent is having more than 4 cards, this is the optimal, actually not optional, optimal situation for you to use that red card. This card can flip around so many battles, especially when your opponent is coming off a Professor Oak or a double Professor Oak, and you can absolutely wreak havoc on their strategies. By doing so, you can make your opponent hold less cards in their hand, and of course with Persian coming into the game, perhaps you can make that 3 card limit on your opponent's hand much less. So this is the main strategy of this deck: sleep your opponent and card distraction on their deck. So by basically doing this, you can do a lot of heavy work on your opponent's defenses, and perhaps they're gonna be left with no optimal strategies up against you. So over here now, my Meowth is gonna do some extra damage on that Snom, but it doesn't matter because we can still hold on in there, because they can do 10 damage at the same time. So my opponent now is having 5 cards, and I decide to go for the red card. This is mainly because I want them to have less cards than usual, and at this point I'm just wishing that I had something like a Persian on my hand, and here it is. Oh yes, we might actually get a chance here at dealing so much more work than drawing a card on our side. We can do card distraction on their end. So what I want to do here is to go for that Persian and try to discard their hand, because we might get that Dragonite eventually out of the way. Let's see though. The coin flip god is in our side, and guess what? Yeah, you guessed correctly. I am super unlucky with those coin flips, especially when I'm using Misty on those water decks. So over here now I want to explain as to why I'm having 2 potions, and this is mainly because you need to survive a little bit extra with this Pokemon that you have on the deck. Most of the times on my decks I'm using 1 single potion, but this deck is extremely fragile and you need to take note of that. You do not have any strong Pokemon other than your Wigglytuff, and Wigglytuff EX is one of the weakest EXs that you can use in the entire game, only with 140 HP remaining. So with that in mind, I believe that you definitely need as much health as you can get, and potions really help on the matter. My prediction for the next coming up booster pack is that we perhaps get access to something like a super potion, and that is gonna be a game changer as well. And this deck will perform much better with that super potion instead, but it is only a prediction. So at this point I want to tell you that I'm using 2 Sabrinas on this deck, and this is mainly because you definitely want to apply some extra pressure on the opponent, and you can already tell that Sabrina is basically a must-have card, pretty much like Professor's Research to every single deck that exists in the game of TCG Pocket right now. So this battle I'm having kind of a rough time, but as long as they're not getting their hands on the Dragonite, we might actually have a chance. And what I want to do is to at some time destroy their hand with my Persian, and I guess we're gonna do that pretty soon, but first we need to overcome our very bad luck. So yeah, that is gonna be all about this deck. I believe that it has a lot to offer. Not a lot of decks can provide extra pressure on your opponent other than going for the damage output, but this deck can absolutely guarantee that. Not only you have the sleep element, but also you have the card distraction element, which can help you a ton. So that is gonna be all for today. Thank you for watching everyone till the end. It really means a lot for my channel here. Please show your appreciation to my videos by liking this video, or simply go for the subscribe if you already haven't done yet, because I'm having more videos coming up, not on a daily basis, but still it is something for you to count on. So overall, I think that Jigglypuff from the promo card is perhaps the most interesting card that you can get, besides that Honda, which can do some extra damage with a coin flip. But if you're gonna use the coin flip, go for the Jigglypuff. It is definitely worth it. This Pokemon is absolutely good, especially against decks that cannot evolve pretty easily. So yeah, that is gonna be all. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all into the next one.